Hello everyone. Welcome to MFOA's webinar titled MMAH Presents Understanding the Municipal Performance Measurement Program Schedules in the FIR for Better Reporting. We have a very good cross-section of members attending this webinar today, so we welcome you all. And I would like to introduce your presenters. Margaret Booth and Chris Van Duren work with the FIRs and the MPMP for the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Margaret is a senior analyst and Chris is program lead. And now, let's get started. Chris?
So just by a show of hands, how many of you are involved in filling out the FIR or performance measurement schedules? So we see that many of you are. Now, naturally, I can't see your hands, but I did look at the list, and we have a very diverse group. It's great to have you all here. In understanding the MPMP schedules and FIR, we have an objective of this training to look at how to assist in improving the accuracy and completeness of the data in the performance measurement schedules of the FIR or also the MPMP. Topics we're going to look at is how and why schedules are set up, things to look out for when completing the schedules, and features that are in there to improve the accuracy of the data, which naturally is something we all are interested in doing. Last June we did a webinar, and in that webinar we had some feedback looking at more information on how to fill out the schedules, and this is really what this seminars or webinar is about. In that previous webinar, we looked at the online tools available, some of the purpose and design around the MPMP, and had a case study from the City of Barrie that looked at the importance of the data in informing and helping with decisions on improving service delivery. And a clear message there is that service drive costs, we need data. Prior to that, we undertook with MFOA sessions in 180 different municipalities participated throughout the province on exploring the FIR and looking at the analytical power, discussing topics around why it's important to get the data right, how to improve it to use in municipal services, how to interpret, and also some examples of the data mining tools through the MIDAS AMO Associated Municipalities Ontario tool. Recently, a letter was sent out by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to announce the requirements for the 2013 reporting of performance measurement data or schedules in the FIR. In this year, you will have noted that we are taking strong consideration of not making a lot of changes to the data reporting requirements, although there were some changes to the building service measures that resulted in through consultation with the stakeholder groups. Going forward, we're very keen on exploring and ensuring that this is used, data is usable, that the data integrity concerns are addressed, and so we'll be consulting and having more further conversations with you, the stakeholders, around that, again focusing on the integrity and utilization. And a couple things to remember about that is, as we have participation on this webinar of a very diverse group, the idea and concept is really around starting a conversation about improving and looking at and communicating to our stakeholders, in this case one of the constituents, about the importance of understanding the services that are delivered as a starting point, and as a scalable system you have many performance measurements aspects in your own organization or municipal government. The MPMP can provide a starting point for that. So I'm going to pass on to Margaret, who is going to provide a bit more in-depth understanding of the MPMP.
Yeah, hello. First, I would like to begin by talking about the alignment of MPMP expenses and the reporting of those expenses in Schedule 40 of the Financial Information Return, or FIR. Starting with the 2009 FIR, service areas in Schedules 40, that's expenses, 12, that's revenues, 51A, are aligned with MPMP services. That means that every MPMP service area has a corresponding line in Schedule 40, and Schedule 40 is the Consolidated Statement of Operations expenses. What this means is that expenses entered in Schedule 40 are automatically carried forward to Schedule 91, and that is the schedule for efficiency measures. Now here there is a comparison between Schedule 40 for 2008 and for 2012. And I'd like you to have a look at this section, transportation. You see we have a single line for roadways, which was line number 0610. Now, starting with 2009, that was broken out into roads paved, roads unpaved, roads, bridges, and culverts, and we also had traffic operations and roadside. So that meant that we can now enter expenses for paved roads, for unpaved roads, for bridges and culverts, and those expenses will be automatically carried forward to Schedule 91. So as soon as you enter your expense, then everything that you need for your numerators or efficiency measures is automatically entered. I'd like to point out here, you can see the line 0620 for winter control, and we broke it down into two lines, winter control except sidewalks and parking lots, and winter control sidewalks and parking lots only. Now for our MPMP winter control measure, we're taking this line 0621 because not all municipalities are clearing sidewalks and parking lots. To begin, we should know what SLC means. This is a reference to Schedule Line Column. This is a unique 8-digit identifier for every cell in the financial information return, including MPMP schedules. So we use that identifier when we store data in the ministry database. We use it in the FIR, including MPMP schedules, and we use it in the MPMP and FIR instructions. Here's an example. We see SLC 91, 1204, 35. 91 refers to Schedule 91, that's efficiency measures. Our line number is 1204, that's police services. Our column is 35, that's the efficiency measure based on operating costs per unit. As I mentioned, expenses entered in Schedule 40 are automatically carried forward to Schedule 91. That means that every column you enter data for in Schedule 40 will be picked up in our performance measures. We have two types of units for every service. We have an operating cost per unit measure and we have a total cost per unit measure. Just to go back over definitions, total costs equal the sum of salaries, wages, and employee benefits, that is a single column, plus materials, plus contracted services, plus rents and financial expenses, plus external transfers, plus the allocation of program support, and then we subtract out revenue from other municipalities, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Total costs start with operating costs, and they add amortization, plus interest on long-term debt, less revenue from other municipality for tangible capital assets. When were the efficiency measures based on total costs introduced? The original MPMP efficiency measures from 2000 to 2008 were defined simply as operating costs per unit. Then in 2009 there was a major revamp of the FIR, and the reporting of amortization and tangible capital assets were added to FIR reporting. This provided an opportunity to develop MPMP efficiency measures that captured capital costs. This is better because it provides a more complete view of service costs. And so the total cost per unit efficiency measures were introduced in MPMP 2009. At the same time, we decided to retain efficiency measures based on operating costs for continuity with the past. I would like to point out that the denominator of the operating cost measure is automatically carried forward and used as a denominator of the total cost measure. You only enter it once. In the formula, I mentioned that for operating costs, we're going to net out revenue from other municipalities, and for total cost, revenue from other municipalities for tangible capital assets. Why are we doing this? And I'm going to go through an explanation. Efficiency measures in MPMP are based on gross expenses. We do not net out revenue from grants, and we don't net out revenues from user fees. However, we are netting out revenue from other municipalities. That is reported in Schedule 12 as in the column for other municipalities. That's going to be automatically carried forward to Schedule 91 and then netted from our expenses in the numerator. Why are we doing that? Well, the assumption is that revenue from other municipalities equals the incremental expense of providing contractual services to other municipalities. Our objective is to isolate expenses for the reporting municipality. Similarly, revenue from other municipalities for tangible capital assets in Schedule 12 is carried forward to Schedule 91 and netted from our total cost measure. That's our numerator. Now, we find that as soon as you enter your expenses in Schedule 91 and revenue from other municipalities in Schedule 12, your numerators are completed. On your worksheet, you will see that those cells are gold in color. What's left to do is simply enter the denominator that's entered in Schedule 91 for operating costs. As I mentioned, the same denominator is automatically used for the total cost per unit measure. We have an exception for the general government measure. The denominator for the operating costs is total municipal operating costs, and for the total cost measure, it's total municipal costs. Those, however, are automatically calculated from the information at the top of Schedule 91. I'd like to talk about when population and households are used as denominators. When this is the case, the data is automatically carried forward from Schedule 02. That's the first page of the FIR. Examples of measures are fire services, parks and recreation, police services, and solid waste. Now, you will see that the background of some denominators in Schedule 91 for households and population are blue, and you can see one right here for fire services and right here also for police services. This one is total property assessment divided by 1,000, so that's blue also, but mainly I'm talking about population and households. Why is it light blue? It's to flag that these cells are automatic carry forwards that can be deleted. Why would you want to delete something that's already carried forward in the denominator? We get to the responsibility concept. Municipalities report measures for services they are responsible for delivering. If a municipality has residual expenses for a service that is delivered by another tier, the reporting municipality is able to delete the denominator. When there is no denominator, the measure is not calculated. Now we'll begin talking about edit rules. Edit rules are intended to help municipalities self-correct data entered in the MPMP efficiency and effectiveness schedules before they are submitted to the province. Edit rules are Excel if statements that trigger an error message when an invalid entry is made in a schedule. There are 3 messages you may see. You could see OK, you could see verify, or you could see critical when it is a critical edit rule. An error message will appear in a separate tab of the Excel workbook that is called PMCheck. It is not visible in the sheet where the error is made. Now, the error message in the PMCheck sheet will turn off when a valid entry or correction is made in the sheet, and the message would then turn to OK. Here's an example of a critical error. Municipalities cannot submit MPMP schedules containing critical errors. Critical errors are used to ensure that key data is entered. They are used sparingly, 13 out of 203 for 2012. The edit rule that we see in this slide checks to see if the municipality has selected the method of allocating indirect costs. And you can see here the data point. If you want to know what this pertains to, this is going to be Schedule 94. This is going to be line 0201, and it's going to be column 3. And it says if program support is reported in Schedule 40, then the method used to allocate program support to other functions must be selected using the drop-down menu in Schedule 94, and that's going to appear on line 0201 of 94. So, to change this edit rule message from critical to OK, the municipality will select the method used to allocate indirect costs from a drop-down menu that you will see in Schedule 94, which is a schedule called Efficiency Measures Questions. Edit rules can compare values entered in different schedules. The edit rule we see here compares megaliters of wastewater treated to population size. In this edit rule, the number of megaliters of wastewater treated in Schedule 91, line 3112, column 31, is compared to 1.25 times the population that is entered in Schedule 02. So that's sort of a check because your population is going to have an impact on the amount of wastewater treated and also water treated. Here's a quick checklist to avoid triggering edit rules. For efficiency measures, begin by selecting the tier responsible for service. And this is, it's a bit blurry, but this is Schedule 53. And you can see when you place your cursor here, you'll have a little down arrow with drop-down menu, and here are the choices: UT for upper tier, LT for lower tier, ST or single tier, shared, or NA. So you're going to make a choice, and you're going to have that choice available for every service. So please begin there. Another thing I'd like to point out is that you need to select units for your solid waste measures. For solid waste measures, select per ton or per household, and that would be in this column, and a little arrow would appear with a drop-down menu, and it would say per ton or per household. Here I've made the selection per ton. As soon as I make that selection, instead of being blank, please select, then you're going to have the text. And for this one, garbage collection, the denominator becomes total tons collected from all property classes. And for each of the solid waste services you deliver, you want to make sure and make your selection. Your unit should be the same for all solid waste measures that you complete. There are some edit rules that are related to the completion of effectiveness measure. Please complete an effectiveness measure if the efficiency measure is completed. I mentioned before that we have a critical error attached to the selection of the method of allocating program support. You can see I am in Schedule 94. The line's a little blurry, but this is 0201, and over here is a drop-down menu, and here are your choices. If you are an OMBI measure member, your choice might be OMBI method or modified OMBI method. Other choices are percentage of total expenditures, modified percentage of total expenditures, and other method. If you select other method, then this a white space will appear, and just type a few words that describe the other method that you are using. Also in this Schedule 94, we ask you to select the type of library service arrangements you have. would like to draw your attention to the fact that Schedule 90 now lists the number of triggered edit rules, and I've circled those in red. And this is a live example of Barrie. We have the two types of edit rules. The critical, there are a total of 13, and Barrie has 0. MPMP schedules cannot be submitted with critical errors. I mentioned that the edit rule tab is separate, and here we can see Schedule 80, 81, 83, PMCheck. This is the tab that's going to contain the list of edit rules and triggered edit rules. So here we have when you correct an error message, then you should get an OK message here. So if the this is an example where the municipality felt the information they had entered was correct, the edit rule would not turn off, and so they entered an explanation talking about why they believe the entry they have made is correct. They may also want to call the FIR helpline by phone or by email to let them know that they've made an explanation here. Why is there a new type of optional efficiency measure? This was starting 2012. Some municipalities represented on the MPMP Advisory Committee asked that interest on long-term debt be netted from expenses for purposes of calculating total costs. Well, why? The decision to finance capital expenses through long-term debt is often made centrally and may not be within a manager's control. This was our solution to add an optional type of efficiency measure, total costs, net of interest on long-term debt per unit. The optional measure is only calculated when a municipality reports interest on long-term debt as shown here for paved roads. These are the columns that are going to record your numerator, your denominator, and your measure, and they are this orange color to distinguish them from the other measures. When no interest is reported as an expense in Schedule 40, then the result is going to be NA, and that optional measure is not going to be calculated. It is up to municipalities to determine whether to report these optional measures to the public in addition to the standard efficiency measures based on operating costs and total costs. Question: are operating costs per unit measures comparable with pre-2009 measure? Well, it depends. It depends whether your municipality introduced changes to capitalization thresholds in 2009. It also depends whether your municipality reported changes in unfunded liabilities for post-employment benefits and/or the closure of landfill sites prior to 2009. Prior to 2009, changes in unfunded liabilities were reported in a separate column in Schedule 40. This column was eliminated in 2009 to better match municipal reporting in the audited financial statements. As a result, expenses related to the change in unfunded liabilities are incorporated by municipalities into other columns, notably salaries, wages, and employment benefits with respect to post-employment benefits. How do I know if a measure has changed from one year to the next? The line number of a measure will change if there is a change in formula. For example, in 2009, the line numbers for all efficiency measures changed to signal that the total cost measures were being added to MPMP and that the column for changes in unfunded liabilities was being eliminated from Schedule 40. In the 2012 MPMP Schedule 91, you may have noticed this new column. It's green and it's called check, and it appears to the right. Check equals the sum of salaries, wages, and employee benefits plus materials plus contracted services plus rent and financial expenses plus external transfers. This check column is used to flag municipalities that report only program support, that's indirect costs, or only interfunctional adjustments. Those are interdepartmental transfers as expenses for efficiency measures. Generally, these municipalities will have very low values for efficiency measures. How does my municipality compare to others? The Ministry prepares a summary of MPMP results for groups of comparable municipalities. Those groups are based on geography, municipal type, and population, and we include up to 5 years of results. This report is posted on the Ministry website, and you see the link there. I want to point out that aggregate statistics, not results for individual municipalities, are calculated. We calculate the median and the range. You are able to find your municipality in the appendix. Here is a shot taken from that report, and this is a page called How to Read a Bar Graph. And you will see that part of the bar is red, and that represents operating costs per unit. The entire length of the bar represents total cost per unit. So that includes the red part, operating costs per unit, plus this speckled gray part, which represents amortization and interest on long-term debt per unit. And you'll notice we have our population groups. This is it for the north, so it looks like that was cut off. And then we have regions and counties. That would be in the south in a two-tier system. Then we have single tiers in the south by population. Then we have lower tiers in the south. And then we have a bar for all municipalities. Notice that we're talking about median. We are graphing median results for every group. We prefer the median because the outlying values drop off. Here for the all municipalities bar, operating costs per unit were $2,126, and the total costs were $5,680. The report includes a table of results for every measure, every efficiency measure, every effectiveness measure. We report the median and range for the groups of municipalities based on geography, municipal type, and population, and the outliers are filtered out before the statistics are calculated for greater accuracy. And here we do have the bar indicating north in those first three groups, and then the south with our regions, counties, so there's the upper tier, the single tiers, and the lower tiers. And the bubbles go through the content. We have the text description of the measure, range here, and that refers to the minimum and maximum values for each group. The median refers to the middle value in a group. And as I mentioned, it's less affected by outlying values than the average. Prior years are shown where the formulas are identical. Now for this example, paved roads were redefined in 2010, so 2009 results are not presented. For each group, results are shown for operating cost per unit, that's a white bar, and the gray bar for total cost per unit. Down here, we have the number of municipalities reporting. The number is going to be the same for operating costs and total costs because those are automatically calculated. But it's with 444 municipalities, it's good to know how many municipalities completed the measure and how many met the filter requirements. The filters are listed on another page. It also lists the SLC code. Again, that's the schedule number, the line number, and the column number. We do prepare detailed instructions for the entire FIR and for the MPMP, and I'd like to draw your attention to where this is located. Please put in financial information return into Google, and it's going to take you to the welcome page, and then you will choose a page for the year. This is taken from the year 2012, And you're going to have to do a lot of scrolling, and you'll scroll down and you see this heading, MPMP instructions, and these are PDF files, and there are instructions for every schedule. Here I've opened the page for building services, and this is a draft for 2013. And I want to point out there's going to be a little change here, that the denominator is going to be a 3-year moving average. So for 2013, the total value of construction activity for 2011 plus 2012 plus 2013 based on permits issued divided by 3, and then that amount is going to be divided by $1,000. So we have a definition here. The functional definition of building permits and inspection services is used. And we have a discussion of the Building Code Act. And here we have a definition that's using those SLC references. So we have salaries, wages, and employee benefits. And this is our Schedule 40 reference. Materials, contracted services, rents and financial expenses, external transfers, interfunctional adjustments, allocation of program support, and then we're going to net from that revenue from other municipalities. So that's an example of what you're going to see if you go and turn to the detailed instructions. We'd like to announce that coming soon we're going to have a very valuable tool. It's called the Multi-Year MPMP Report. There will be a report automatically generated by the ministry for every municipality. And it's going to be posted on the FIR website. We will include results for all years where the measure is identical to the most recent reporting year. Therefore, efficiency measures most will be comparable for operating costs back to 2009. For the total cost measures, comparable back to 2010. That's because there was a change in the formula in 2010 where we began netting out revenue from other municipalities for tangible capital assets. And for effectiveness measures, most are comparable, or many are comparable, back to 2001. We are now going to display this report, a sample of this report. And here you see on your screen. So we begin with the most recent year, and we're going to be automatically generating results into this report. And you can see I can move back and forwards. Now, you can see that this has a row for the optional cost measure. And again, that's up to a municipality to decide whether it's going to report to the public. I think this is very valuable because a municipality could choose to use this report to meet its obligation for public reporting. If you do not report a service, then you could eliminate the row. For example, fire services. For this example, I'm going to hide it. I would actually delete it, I think, if I was doing this as a report. And I would delete this. So what I was mentioning, that our new efficiency measures began in 2009, and you can see that. And in 2010, we're adding our total cost measures, and here in 2012, we just added that new optional measure. So down here, where we have this row that you can see going clear across, that is an effectiveness measure. That was total crime rate per 1,000 persons. So you can see how interesting a tool this is, and we're going to be preparing this automatically for you. I think this will be very valuable. I would like to point out that the ministry does prepare optional templates for municipalities to report MPMP results to the public. A reminder that municipalities are required to report MPMP results annually to the public by September 30th. The benefits of this are accountability, transparency, and tracking progress over time. The municipality determines the reporting method and format. For example, many municipalities choose to post on the municipal website. Here is an excerpt from the optional template that the ministry prepares. This is, we have in the past done two different types. This is in Excel, so this is easy to use. And you see we have the, I mentioned that for every service we're going to have an operating cost per unit measure, total cost per unit measure. And this is what you're seeing here. And then we begin with our effectiveness measures. We're looking at roads. So an effectiveness measure would be the percentage of paved lane kilometers where the condition is rated as good to very good. And in this format, we have provided for multi-year reporting, and we've also provided an expandable space for notes and also room for a contact person. I'd like to emphasize that the notes are very helpful to provide a context. They help any reader understand your municipality's MPMP results. And this is an example from Brantford. This is an expandable space. And they're putting information that they believe will help the public understand their measure for general government and for fire service. So as you can see, you don't have to write a ton. You can be fairly concise and still be quite informative.
So just as what Margaret was showing, several of the features, we do recognize there is different types of interests and more information you might like to receive. So we have various contact on here. And as I said, Margaret, you're going to demonstrate through the website. This is the FIR website.
Yeah, we want to point out that there's a wealth of information on the website. So here, this bar to the left is quite useful. We want you to know it's here. And if I go choose here, I'm going to go to financial reporting for the year that I've specified. If I scroll down, way down, I'm going to get to MPMP information. I would like to point out that down here we have in a preview of 2013 for the expanded building services measure. So that's down here, and we also have a mock-up of the change that you will see in Schedule 92 for the effectiveness measure. I'm going to back up. Now, you may view the submitted FIR, including MPMP schedules for any municipality that interests you. So here I'm going to pick, I picked 2012. Each of them has a different little image over here, and this is alphabetical. I'm going to pick Cornwall, and I'm going to look up here, and I have the choice of PDF or Excel. I'm going to go back. And I want to point out something that's really interesting. This is View FIR Data by Schedule. This is a data dump, and I'm going to choose from 2009 on. So here we have a listing of all the FIR schedules, and here I'm going to be interested in 2012. And I'm going to scroll down so we can line up 2012. I'm going down, and I'm going to open 91. So this is what you will see, but we have all municipalities here, and I'm going to begin here, and we have a down arrow, and please make note of this select all spot. When I remove this, let's say I'm picking one municipality, then you see it's just that municipality. So to clear, select all. Now this will give us every municipality. Over here we have the service area in this column. So you can make select all, or I can just make one particular selection for purposes of illustration. Here's a description of the measure. Now we have only one pair have efficiency measures here for bridges and culverts. That's operating cost for bridges and culverts per square meter of surface area, and also the total cost measure. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to clear that select all, and that is really the trick to working this schedule. And I'm going to pick Ajax here. I'm going to say OK. Now what you're seeing up here are the column headings that you would see in Schedule 91. And if I keep scrolling over, and here we have the efficiency measure based on operating costs. I happen to know that's column 35. Over here we have the efficiency measure based on total costs. And if there was the optional measure because a municipality had entered interest on long-term debt, that would appear here. Another thing that's I'm going to go and manipulate select all. I'm going to leave that for a moment. I'm going to go, remember I can choose by upper tier. I can choose by line number. And sometimes that is a very helpful way to go by line number. So I'm going to clear this. Sometimes it's a little sticky. Anyway, line number, I'm going to go try service areas. Okay, that's, sometimes you have to, if you find that issue, sometimes you should go over to this select all. And I'm going to, this time I'm going to clear. I'm going to go to fire services. Say OK. I can choose upper tier. Now this is your tiering arrangement code, and if you wanted to look at results for just, and you're in a lower tier in the south, I can pick the first 2 digits of the MAH code, and that would be for Halton region. So 14 is the first 2 digits of the MAH code, and so we're pulling up Halton region, also Oakville, Burlington, Milton, and Halton Hills. And we are going to see their results for fire services. This is not delivered by the upper tier, so that's why you're not seeing regional results. So here we're going to have, I'm going to scroll over a bit more, and we're going to see the results with the efficiency measure based on operating costs, and over here in 45, efficiency measure based on total cost, and here it looks like we do have some optional efficiency measures completed, and it will be up to those municipalities to determine whether they wish to report those to the public. This is, again, this is a self-serve tool. I think it's going to be very valuable and helpful. And if you have any trouble, please call the FIR helpline to work. I'm going to hand the mouse back to Chris Van Duren. We're now going to look at some of the questions that you have typed in. And Chris is going to take the first crack at these questions.
All right, thank you, Margaret and Chris. Our first question is, I understand that municipalities under 100,000 population must allocate program support as a percentage of expenditures. As KPIs become increasingly important for us in measuring our performance, we may start allocating corporate program support overheads to service areas by journal entry in our financial system. If we do this, there will not be any costs remaining in the program, in program support or corporate management. Now we will not be in compliance with the allocation of program support in the FIR. Is this okay?
It's a good question. We haven't went in 2009 and we looked at quite extensively the allocation and developed, recognizing that there is a lot of diversity and in municipalities in terms of even how they calculated that. It was important to come up with some sort of standardized method of doing it. And as for the municipalities of 100,000, if I understand the question correctly, there is several discussions of different ways that municipalities do it, but our sort of hope and emphasis is to come and to consult around a basic method that met the needs of the majority, I should sort of say, but at the same time you're going to also feel the need to report in a manner that best fits your local situation to communicate to your constituents. So I think maybe what you're asking is it okay in terms of how you need to understand your local situation and what's the best method to account for your costs over time and communicate that. But the other point of it is to use the advantage of a standardized measurement program and system is to have those comparables to help you sort of generate the questions around that by looking and using that with other municipalities. So you might want to find in your case that what are some of the like-minded municipalities that in terms of size and services per se, what are they doing, what makes sense for us to learn from each other. And it's really all about creating that platform and that starting point, because there's no such thing as a perfect measure, as we all know. It's creating that story around what helps us articulate and identify opportunities to improve services and to improve the way we message it to the constituents.
I would like to ask you to please complete that question in 94 that asks what method are you using, and there's a little bit of space for you to enter text. There's also that notes schedule that's important. The idea of methodologies that were standard for allocating program support was for comparability, but we are interested in hearing comments from municipalities, other approaches they may be using that they find helpful.
That's why Margaret was talking about the notes section. So there's an opportunity to clarify, and the way and the differences among municipal finance and municipalities is considerable. So you might have some considerations that people need to take into mind when looking at the results. So that's why providing that information is really important.
Okay, thank you, Professor Margaret. Our next question is, how are others dealing with the changes in MPMP results year over year as a result of non-TCA capital expenditures? For example, we budget studies and other non-TCA items in our capital budget. These figures are not necessarily consistent year over year, and these year over year changes can cause large fluctuations in our measurements. Before TCA, these items were included in our capital schedule and did not form part of Schedule 40. I'm thinking if we look at our measures internally, we may not include these periodic one-time costs in the calculation of our operational costs. However, maybe we should. And should they?
This is a more extreme example. Generally within municipality by municipality, there might be less fluctuations. You will just have to use your notes, please, and internally you're going to have to explain to council why you are getting this fluctuation, and that's because of the change in the treatment of the capitalization threshold that you're getting this kind of variability.
Yeah, bear in mind it's a communication tool, and there are those fluctuations and there are good reasons for it. So you have that opportunity and to explain that as you're looking over your results over time and hoping to get to more of a clear approach.
I would like to say this is not the situation with every municipality. So
sure,
our goal is standardized reporting again, and your municipality seems to find that you have a lot of fluctuations. So communication again has to be the answer.
And that that was a bit of a long question, so if we didn't answer that, perhaps that can be sent off to us and we can look into it a bit further and connect with the right answer.
All right, thank you, Chris and Margaret. So this question is, TCA revenue from other municipalities vary from year to year significantly, so it is hard to compare MPMP measures from year to year. Also, TCA revenue relates items on the balance sheets, not on the operating expenditures. So it's hard to compare to other municipalities. Any comments on why this revenue is excluded on the MPMP measures?
Okay, I'll answer that one. We wanted to have a parallel treatment to the operating costs where we historically, even back in the beginning, we were netting out revenue from other municipalities because it's a proxy for the incremental expenses incurred when you have a contractual agreement with another municipality. So we wanted something parallel in dealing with the capital costs. Now, that tends to be more with things like bridges, shared bridges, something that you're sharing with another municipality. That's certainly something interesting, and again, if you would write in with this issue, we can look at that. That's quite interesting. We had not heard that before.
And the person indicated that it is netted out.
It's what?
It's netted out. You asked
Yes. We netted out to be a parallel construction to the calculation of the operating costs. So we're trying to be parallel to that when we calculate our total cost per unit. But this is interesting. I know that in 2009 that netting didn't occur, and that was a little glitch because that column was omitted in our new Schedule 12. And then we pulled the data, we looked at it, and saw how many had reported that, and there were a fair number that reported it in 2008. So we thought it should be brought back into Schedule 12 as a starting point, but this is quite an interesting point.
Yeah, and credit to the individual who provide that question, because this is the type of information we sort of seek and have in our committees and group that are involved in advancing the program and ensuring it meets the objectives and support, is to get that information and to report on that.
Okay, the next question is, when will the 2013 FIR be available?
Historically, we post just around Christmas. It may be into January because
We'll definitely be early January.
Until January to look at
Usually
that.
it's mid-December, but
Basically, for MPMP schedules, the only change is going to be that change to the expansion of the effectiveness measures for building services. Please have a look at the preview. If you have a particular question, you could call the helpline and speak with the FIR coordinator, who is Jim Simos.
All right. Our final question is, when do you anticipate the multi-year MPMP report to be available to municipalities?
Right. The programmer just completed that. She had to put in all those links into the database. So that should be rolling forward
very shortly
in the new year.
Well,
the prototype's ready. It's ready to go. It's all set up.
Yeah.
Right. So first, our priority is get that FIR, including the MPMP schedules, up and ready. And then there's a bit of a breathing space in January. And I think that the program's going to begin working on posting those.
And I think there's also a bit of a questionnaire that goes out to try to get some sense of you of what information you'd like to receive. If this is helpful, if there's other sources of contact or you would like, please let us know.
All right. Thank you, Chris and Margaret. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar, and we appreciate your feedback and ask that you take a few minutes to complete the survey we will be sending out after this broadcast. I'd also like to thank our speakers, Margaret and Chris, for presenting today and their continued work with the FIRs and the MPMP. And before we break off, I'd like to point out that the 2014 MFOA training calendar will be coming out soon, so please visit mfoa.on.ca often as content is updated regularly. Thank you all, and bye for now.